everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums, and I have a tutorial for you today. I have made this mini album and I'm going to show you how to make it. There's actually two videos in the series, the one on the construction of the album and then the second one showing you how I decorated it, matting and stickers and all that. The measurements for the mini album I give, of course, as we go. They're not in the description box, they are in my Ko-fi shop. So if you want to purchase the measurements for a slight fee, otherwise grab a pencil and paper and you can just write them down as we go. The measurements for decorating them, however, are at this point just as I go through it on the video. I may put it in the Ko-fi shop, it just depends on how much time I have. But let me show you, we'll do a little walkthrough of the mini album and show you what is in it. First of all, it's a 6.5 by 6.5 mini album. It has 2-inch spine, and it's got 5 signatures in it. The cover is pretty simple. It's just a couple of different layers, a little stripe. I did use a cut apart here, but I layered on top of it with a circle. I just use a circle punch and a sticker from the sticker sheet. That's a sticker also, and I use some enamel dots just to coordinate with it. It's pretty simple. Of course, you can go crazy. There is the spine, and there is the back. The inside front cover has a flap with a pocket. If you guys follow me, you know I love to put flaps and pockets. Usually I put them in the back of the album because to me that's where you put all the stuff that doesn't fit in the rest of the album. But I just like this sort of welcoming you to the mini album, and so I wanted that to be on the cover. So hello, sweet baby boy. That will open, and here we have inside just the back of a cut apart, actually, some of the solids and another back of the cut apart. So for this, I did use the solids to coordinate with it. I used a collection kit, which has 12 double-sided papers and the 12 by 12 element sticker sheet. It was, it's an Echo Park collection from 2022. A lot of Echo Park collections, a lot of collections, not just Echo Park, would work for this. But if you want to decorate it exactly how I did, this is still available as of right now in the Echo Park store. Page 2 has this cut apart. It's magnetized on the back, and we've got 2 flaps. Inside the flaps are some pockets, and in the pockets are a couple of tags. So again, that will give you a good spot for journaling and or putting photos. And here is a tuck spot. There is a photo mat on this page, but just to add a little oomph, there is this tuck spot with, actually this is a cut apart, so you could put that there if you want and add a photo to the back, or just put a photo here, or just add a photo there. So that goes like that. Now again, there are 5 separate pages. Each of the page has a side-loading hidden photo mat. The photo mats are just simple. I think they're 5.5 by 5.5. I have to double check. But they do have a little tab. And I show you how to do this, and I also show you an alternate method if you don't have the tab punch board and tab punch like I do to make it. So I show you something else to do, just in case you don't have all those fangly things. All right, so the back of page 1 has a cut apart, and it is magnetized, holds this flap down. There's room here to journal on the cut apart. I love these bottles. They were very imaginative. On this page, we've got a good sized photo mat, and there is a journaling card tucked into that photo mat. This is fussy cut. I think it's the only time I fussy cut, but it just gives you room to add a little photo. If you don't want it to be a tuck spot, you could glue everything down. But there's more on this page. This will open to the top, and there is a side-loading pocket with a small folder ready for 4x4 photos. And then, of course, there's room there for the photos. That goes in there. That closes. That goes like that. The front of page 2 has a 4x4 cut apart, and inside there are 2 more 4x4 actually it's the back of some cut-aparts that you can use to decorate the pages or put the photos right on there. And again, another tuck spot at the top for some journaling. Here is our hidden photo mat. The back of page 2 has another 3x4 cut-aparts. I just thought that skunk was real cute. And there are some animals on this page that coordinate with everything. And here I just left it fairly simple. You could decorate it more with stickers or photo mats, but again, I kept it simple. On some pages I added a photo mat, and others I left it blank, thinking that that way the recipient could choose the different sizes on these other pages. So you could put a photo here and definitely a photo here, or this is a great spot for journaling. I always love these lined papers for journaling on. It's sort of like a cheat. There is a photo mat there and just a sticker. It's really simple, but that coordinates those two pages nicely. There is our hidden photo mat. The next set of pages has sort of the train theme going on. So there is the train paper. This is actually the back of the train paper, and this is one of the cut-aparts. It's got the train on it and just some of the coordinating solids to go there. Here's a sticker from the train and a couple of small photo mats. And there's our hidden photo mat there. Another 3x4 cut-apart. The cut-aparts in this collection were adorable, so I was happy to be able to use them. So again, that leaves you room to journal a little bit and room to put your photo on that page. This one, again, we're using the 4x4 cut-aparts. This will open this way and then open like that. So there's room for 4x4 or smaller photos on the page. And then in the top, there's a tuck spot of a little tag that actually came from the sticker sheet. Here is our hidden photo mat. And then this page does have just room here. There's a tuck spot here, so you could put a 4x4, 5x5, a cut down 4x6, because the pages are, what are the pages? 6x6. So of course you could put a 4x6 photo, but it would be just a little bit too big, so you could trim it down and it would look great on there. This is a 4x6 cut apart, and this sort of hides our little waterfall. So this will come up. There's the flap for the waterfall. Here's another flap where you could journal, or I give you some different options for it, but you could put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 4x6 photos on this page. In this case, I have the magnet underneath, so that way it just stays nice and neat and clean, and you can see all of the writing that's on that 4x6 cut apart. And then we already saw the back. It's got this adorable line of animals, some of the safety pins, and that really pretty plaid that comes with the collection. So that is it. It's a simple mini album. We take it step by step. You add the papers and the stickers and it becomes more, I wouldn't say complex, but just more interesting. So we will do the making of the mini album in this video. Are you ready? All right, let's get started. All right, let's make a mini album. So I have 2 pieces of chipboard that measure 6.5 by 6.5, and 1 piece for the spine that's 2 by 6.5. I've already put double-sided adhesive on the back. I have a 6-inch roll of it, and then I also added some 1/4 inch, so that is all done. And then I've got 2 pieces of cardstock. Now the cardstock I'm using is 65-pound weight. I will add in some 110-pound cardstock for some flaps, but if you don't have that, you can just stick with the 65-pound weight, because the paper you're going to add to it will help make it a little bit stronger. I've cut down 2 pieces of 8.5 by 11, and mostly what I'm using is 8.5 by 11 because I'm out of 12 by 12. I don't have any, and I'm nowhere near a store, and I forgot to order it. So there. I have 2 pieces of cardstock. I cut down. It was 8.5. No, not by 10.5. Was it? 9.5. 8.5 by 9.5. pieces of 65-pound cardstock. I put a piece of the 1/4-inch double-sided permanent adhesive. I'm using the brand scrapbook.com brand. It works fine for me. I know that some people like the score tape, and you know, use what you have. So I'm going to use my surface to help line this up, and I will overlap this a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch and just adhere this to that tape. I'll go ahead and burnish that down. So now the center is where the tape is doubled up. You can see the seam on the top, it's here, but on the bottom, I don't know if you can see it, if it's transparent, but on the bottom it's over 1/4 of an inch. So if I want to line things up, I'm going to use the seam on the bottom, but to be honest, it's not that important. You won't even see it. By the time it's all said and done, you won't even think to look for where the seam is. I'm going to peel off this backing paper on my double-sided adhesive. I did burnish it real well, so we're good on that. And then I am going to just place this down where I think the center is. And I have about 1 inch top and bottom, actually. Exactly 1 inch on the top and 1 inch on the bottom. I could use my T-square just to make sure it's real nice and straight, but it's not that important. Okay, and I'm going to take my 1/4-inch double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to put one at the top, and I go almost to the edge. I'm tearing it as opposed to cutting it or using a tool or implement to cut it. And then I will burnish this down. I'm using a Dress Your Craft non-stick bone folder number 2, and it doesn't have a point. Well, it does have a point, but it's good enough to peel off the backing. I can usually start peeling off the backing with this. Okay, so you can probably see slightly the double-sided adhesive on both sides of that spine piece. Now I will go ahead and peel off the backing of the cover. All right, so this is 6.5 by 6.5. I'm going to take this and I'm going to overlap my double-sided adhesive that's next to the spine. So that's 1/4 of an inch width. I don't want to go quite 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to cover maybe about 1/3 of it, so 2/3 of it will be showing. If I had to give you a measurement, it's a little more than 1/8, a little less than 1/4, so it's actually 3/16. But I know a lot of people don't like those teeny measurements, so a little more than 1/8, a little less than 1/4. Peel off the backing. Alrighty, and I'll do the same. With this, we'll overlap this just so it's parallel. You see that gap. I'll burnish that, and I'm going to turn this over, and just using the side of my bone folder, I will burnish this as well. Going to take my bone folder, and there's sort of a beveled edge there. Going to find the edge of the chipboard and just burnish. Now this will stick a little bit because some of the double-sided tape is still showing because there's no backing on it anymore, but that's okay. I mean, if you have paper, if you're working on a paper surface, it wouldn't be okay, but I've got this mat and it is okay. All right, I don't have a tool. I mean, I do. I made myself a little tool. I am simply going to cut across the diagonal here. Stay about 1/4 of an inch away from the corner of the chipboard. I say that, and I usually err on the side of caution, and I'm a little, did I say 1/4? 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the chipboard. I'm usually a little closer to 1/4. There's that 3/16 measurement again. I'll use my surface and fold this. All right, and now I am not going to use tape. I'm just going to use glue. You could, if you want to, run a piece of tape along the edge of the chipboard or along the edge of the cardstock, or both. I feel like it's not necessary, but some people like to do that, and that's fine, whatever you want to do. Now I'm also going to go up this diagonal and on the outside, down the diagonal, and zigzag. I'm not going to put too much on because I know this is going to stick with what I have, and I also know that I'm going to put other papers on top of this to ensure that this paper is not going anywhere. It is certainly going to cover my chipboard. I'm running that beveled edge on the top, right at the corners where I start, where the chipboard, edge of the chipboard and the edge of the cardstock meet. If I get any glue, I clean it off. See, I knew there would be some there. So I don't want any glue on my bone folder, so I clean it off and just burnish that. I'm not worried so much about the channels here. Not yet, at least. All right, another bead of glue right alongside that chipboard. And zigzag. I am using the Designer Dries Clear Glue from the Art Institute Glitter. And I did say that right. Unless they put it on the label wrong. It says somewhere, Art Institute Glitter Incorporated. I know. Wouldn't you have thought it was the Art Glitter Institute? Like these people are, all they do is they study art glitter? But no, it's the Art Institute Glitter. All right, I'll push in these little corners and you can see better on your own. Put a bead of glue here around this shape, which is called a trapezoid. If you guys follow me, you know I learned that from watching hockey, because there's the trapezoid behind the goalie's net. I mean, I probably learned it in high school. No, not high school. Probably in 6th grade math. But I'm sure I forgot it. And remembered it again watching hockey. All right, I'll do this one around the trapezoid. And so when I'm taking my bone folder, I'm pushing this right up against, so the chipboard and the cardstock, this cardstock will go straight up. And then I pull it down with my fingers, hit it right at that corner, and burnish. And that paper's not going anywhere. Now it looks like this is sticking out a little, but what I do is when I'm done, I take my bone folder and go along the long edge and then along the short edge. And we're good. Now what I'll do is take this part of the bone folder, which is sort of a rounded edge, and go back and forth a couple of times in this channel, pushing down the cardstock so the surface on the top that's got the glue on it meets with the surface on the bottom with the glue on it, and they meet, and they get married, and they live happily ever after in mini album land. Okay, so there we go with that cover. Now, you could, if you wanted to, cover this whole piece with a piece of 22 inches. No, what am I talking about? 15 1/4 inch cardstock by a little smidgen less than 6.5. But I'm not going to. I don't need to. We don't need the extra bulk. What I'm going to do, though, is make a hinge. So for that, I have a piece of cardstock. It's the 65-pound weight. It is 5 7/8 by 11. My pages are going to be 6 inches tall. So I want 1/8 of an inch smaller than 6 inches. Now you could do it right at 6 inches, but it's just easy to do it a little smaller. Everything fits nicely. 5 7/8 by 11. I'm going to score it, and here are the measurements. Now I will put this in my, why are you blurrying? There we go, in case you didn't get the last of them. I will put this in my coffee shop. I will put the link in the description box. I will put the measurements in there. You guys have been so kind to follow me. All right. Now, here's the thing. I have cheated. And since I usually do the same type of hinge, I like to have a 1/2 inch hinge with a 3/8 of an inch gusset. So I did a little marker on my scoreboard. Now, if I change it and I don't do that, it's no big deal. I just ignore those and just go by the measurements on the top. But this way I can do it almost blindfolded. Well, not blindfolded because I need to see my marks. Anyhow, we're going to start at 2, and I'll read the measurements in case you want to write it down for me reading them. But here we go. 2, 2.5, 3, 3 3/8, 3 7/8, 4 3/8, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 3/4, 6 1/8, 6 5/8, 7 1/8, 7.5, 8, 8.5. So what we have are 5 hinges and 4 gussets. The hinges are 1/2 inch and the gusset is 3/8. So hinge, hinge, gusset, hinge, hinge, gusset. So we've got it where the bumpy side is facing down. It's indented here. I'm going to turn it over and have it facing this way. And I am going to start folding and burnishing in between each of those 1/2 inch pieces. So I have these 2 1/2 inch pieces. There's a score line in the middle of those. I'm going to fold on that, and I'm going to make sure the edges are lined up. And then I'll just burnish right there at that bottom piece. Now I'm going to skip until we get to the next set of 1/2 inch hinges and fold again. Making sure everything's straight and burnishing. So then we'll skip skip a score line, fold. And you can do that, say that in your head, skip, skip, fold. And that way you should get the right fold line. Now if you mess up and fold in one place where you're supposed to skip, no big deal. Just go ahead and fold it again. All right, so now the bumpy side is facing down, and you can see lightly there's little mountains. They're not big mountains, they're little, like you're driving around the countryside and you see some hills. Now let's go to the Rockies and let's make this a mountain. So I'm going to pull this piece towards me, holding this down, and that part that we scored is going to come up, and I'm going to pull it until I can grab this hinge and just finger burnish it. And then I'll hold that and pull this towards me. So we're going to take that little valley, or not valley, the little hill, it's going to turn into a mountain, and I'll do the same thing. Go back and forth maybe and just finger burnish it. And we'll do that with the other ones. Just pull it. It will create that mountain because we've burnished it, and it has no choice but to do what we want it to. And there we go. So we have 5 mountains. We're sort of talking Rocky Mountains now, but we want them like really steep. So I'm going to take this whole thing and pull it towards me and make sure the gussets stay down and the mountains stay up. And now you've got your hinges all facing up. But Debbie, how are they going to stay? Well, we're going to glue them. We're not going to glue them yet, but we will in a second. But I want to burnish it one more time. So I'm trying to get all the gussets down on the surface, the hinges all standing up, and pull them all towards me and burnish. Hold it there and burnish. I'll turn these all to face away from me. I'm tired of looking at you, mountains. I don't want to see the cliff side. I want to see the side with the snow that you see snowboarders coming down. And then we burnish. All right, so now we've got our mountains. Again, it's not permanent yet, but let's turn this over. So now the mountains are facing down and we've got these crevices, and we're going to put glue in there. So the way I put glue in is I start about 1/4 of an inch from the edge, because if it seeps, I don't want a lot coming out. And then I just zigzag. It doesn't have to zigzag, it doesn't matter, just get glue on there. And then I go as close as I can to the very top of that crevice, and then I turn it over. Hold on, I'm looking to put down my little mat so I don't get glue on this, because I cleaned it just the other day. And I put it down on there, and I'll finger burnish it again. Now, if you don't like, some people don't like the feel of paper, so you can just burnish it with your bone folder. But generally what I do is I finger burnish it first and then go back with the bone folder and do it all. But whatever. All right, zigzag, make a line across the top, turn it over, and squeeze. We'll do that to a couple more, zigzag, line across the top, and squeeze. And because I'm lazy, and because also I know I'm in an environment where it's very humid, this glue is not going to dry real quick. If you're out in the west where it's hot and dry, you may not want to do this, but I'm doing 2 at once. And take my finger and burnish that and burnish that. All right, now I've got them all burnished. Now I'm going to take my bone folder and I'll go along the edge. Now I'm looking real careful to make sure no glue is coming out. I don't want glue on my bone folder. There wasn't any coming out, but we're distributing the glue so it just gets smushed all in there and we're good. All right, so then I'll take this and face our hinges straight up and let that dry for just a minute or 2. But because I'm doing a video, I'm not gonna let it dry at all. Okay, so now because we had about 1 inch of the cardstock excess on the top and bottom, I could just put this hinge down and I don't need to cover it with paper. So that's why I didn't worry about covering it. We'll do it this way just so my writing is right. All right, so now I'm going to, I don't have any glue on here yet, I'm going to just place this down and eyeball it and try to figure out exactly where I want this to be. Now, I found you can't rely on the lines of where the papers were joined. That is not a tried and true method to make sure you have it straight. My best bet is to eyeball it. Now, if you wanted to, I guess you could score a line in here and match that up with this. But again, I just find it's just easiest to eyeball it. So I want it to be equidistant. Is that a math term? On all 4 sides. I want it to be about a little more than 1/4 of an inch from the top of the cover to the top of the hinge, and same thing from the bottom of the hinge to the bottom of the cover. Now it's a little trickier on the side because you can't really see it. You can sort of see where the indentation is. You know, sometimes the shadows play games with your eyes, but just do your best to get it as straight as possible. All right, so I know where it's going to be. I sort of have an idea. I'll hold this in my hand, not real tight, just sort of loose, because if I hold it loose, then I can let the hinge fold where the hinges are sticking out. So that way, when I take my glue, and I'm going to take it, I'm going to put glue just in that gap or that line. Just put glue there on all 5 of these. Well, the hinges are on the other side. And again, I'm starting about 1/4 of an inch and stopping at 1/4 of an inch because I don't want it to seep out. If it does, you just clean it up. And then I'll zigzag in these rows. It's actually the underside of the gusset. I'll just zigzag. Now, in the world of glue, this is probably where I'm going to have the most glue out of anywhere else in my book. But still, I don't want it dripping wet. All right, so I've got my glue. You see my little zigzaggy things? And then I'm holding it by these wings, the sides. And I remember that I wanted it about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, about 1/4 of an inch from the top. I'm not pushing it down, I'm just setting it down and making sure, like this, it looks like I can pull it over a little at the top. And that looks pretty darn good. All right, so when you do an even number of hinges, you have an odd number of gussets. There is an odd number of hinges, so an even number of gussets. So I'm going to choose one that's in the center. So I go with gusset number 2. Likes long walks on the beach. Cats. All right, I'm going to take my finger and go from the top to the middle and from the bottom to the middle. So that'll separate the hinges, that they'll go out a little bit. Now I'll go to the one to the right and move this hinge over, and you can see the rest of the hinges will move very slightly. So again, I'll take my finger and go from the top to the middle, the bottom to the middle. Now I'll move this back, move that back, and go to the one on the left and do the same thing. And move that, move that, move that. Everything moves along with it. And then do the one to the far left. Now, of course, we don't have any glue here on the wing, but I am using my finger to burnish the glue that was in that channel of that first hinge, and do the same over here. And then I'm going to push them all one direction. I'll tilt this to the side and burnish, and tilt it to the other way. You may notice I have a little bit of a bigger gap on the top than I do on the bottom. I usually do that. I didn't mean to do it this time, but I usually do that, especially if I think I'm going to have tabs or a top loading pocket or something. So I usually have more room at the top, but it doesn't matter. I told you to put it, center it on there, and that's really what I should have done. But in this case, it doesn't matter. All right. Now we're going to take care of these wings, so I'm going to take this one on the right and fold it. See, there's no glue there, but we're going to take care of that. I'll put glue right next to that whole hinge system there and zigzag a bit on the chipboard and on that cardstock covering that chipboard. And I'll do that for the other side. We'll zigzag on the other side of that channel. And then I also want to put some on this indentation on where the cardstock is, because this top piece is going to adhere to our double-sided adhesive that's down in that channel, but I have nothing to have it adhere at the top or the bottom, so I'll add a little glue to that channel. Again, staying about 1/4 of an inch away from where this is going to be, where the wing is going to be. All right, now I'll take my bone folder, and right next to the hinge, I'll go from the bottom to about the middle, and I'm sorry, the top to the middle and the bottom to the middle. Doesn't matter which order you do it in, and do it very gently because this paper is now wet from the glue and it could very easily crack. All right, now I'm going to take my bone folder and finding that channel between the cover and the spine chipboard and go back and forth several times, pushing down just slightly. Now none of the glue is seeping out here, but if it was, I'd clean it up right away with a paper towel or something. Don't push down too hard and don't use a point. I'm using my rounded edge. If you don't have a rounded edge, you could probably use the edge of your bone folder and just go back and forth. So how many times have I done that? 20, 30? And then I will take my cover and move it up so I can make sure this cardstock matches with that double-sided adhesive and adheres. And then I'll let that fall and burnish so this glue that we have will adhere. And you know what I should have done? I should have added some, but I was talking. I'll add some there. You don't need a heck of a lot because as long as it's going to stay where it needs to right here, it's not going anywhere. We're going to cover that with something, I'm sure. All right, and burnish that and we're good. All right, let's do this side. All right, so again, we'll lift this up. I will add my glue. Add a little bit in this channel. Don't want to put it on our double-sided adhesive. Add some on the other side of the channel. And then I'll do what I should have done in the last one, and I'll take some glue and go around the outside perimeter of this paper, and then just a little bit of zigzag just so it adheres up here. So again, I'll take my bone folder and go from the top to the middle, from the bottom to the middle, distribute that glue, find the channel and go back and forth 1,000 times. Well, all right, 20. Open the book. I'm sorry. Close the book. That's what I'm doing, is closing the book, going back and forth. I know this paper now is adhering to that double-sided adhesive that we put down way, way, way back when. And then I will burnish this down. Alrighty, so I've got like a little bump right on the side. It's okay. It's all right. We're not going to see it, but there is a bump there just where the paper is sort of rippled from opening and closing it, and there's a couple of layers of paper and there's some glue. That's okay. Let's let the glue dry. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. I'm not going to try to close the book. I'm just going to let it dry the way it is. And while we let it dry, we are going to go ahead and make some base pages. There are 5 pages in this book, so I need 2 sets of 5 base pages. I've cut 2 sets of papers to make the 5 base pages. That's what I meant to say. The papers are 7 inches by 6 and 6 by 6. You'll need 5 of each of those. 5 that are 7 by 6 and 5 that are 6 by 6. The 6 by 6 ones, these are the ones that don't give us any trouble. They're like, I don't know, middle child, firstborn? I don't know. Which one doesn't give you any trouble? Guess they all do. And then the 7 by 6, this is the one we're going to have to deal with. So with the long side at the top, the 7-inch side at the top of my scoreboard, I am simply going to score at 1/2 inch. And you could rotate it again and score it at 1/2 inch. Or you could score it at 1/2 inch and at 6.5. Whichever works easiest for you. I tend to do things that you're not doing. You conserve your motions of your hands. But this is good too. It was fun. Got to do a little twirly thing. Score it 1/2 inch, twirl it. That wasn't as much of a twirl as it was a spin. And score it 1/2 inch. So I have those 5 pieces, and we're going to match them up with these 5 pieces. Let's just take one 6x6 paper and one 7x6. Before you do anything, I am going to miter the corners. So we go from the score line. The scissors will rest on that score line if you give it a chance, and just cut up to a slight bevel. We'll do that with this side, do that with this side, and do that there. And then I will take and fold on the score lines. I've got the bumpy side facing up, although ultimately it really doesn't matter. And then I'm going to burnish on the score line. Making sure I stay on the score line. Sometimes you think you're burnishing on the score line and it goes wonky. Okay, 2 things you could do. You could either take the 6x6 paper and put it right on top of there, make sure everything's straight, and then lift it up and glue, or you could put it inside now. So when I do that, it doesn't exactly fit because this is exactly at 6 inches. You could cut a smidgen of the paper off of it. Oh, isn't that interesting? I turned it the other way and it fit. When I was saying it wasn't fitting, it was just that this was just slightly bigger. Oh, see, it's not, it is slightly bigger. And so what we're doing is we're making a tube, and it's sort of that 6x6 inch paper is sort of buckling out a little bit. If it's a lot, don't do it. If it's a little, it's not a big deal. But I turned it around and it's not doing it at all. All right, so here's the thing. You could have the tabs on the outside of the workings, or you could have the tabs on the inside so you don't see them. So we're going to put in the book this way, and if the tabs are on the inside, when you put paper on the inside, maybe it'll get hung up on the tabs. Usually not, but it could. If the tabs are on the outside, well, that won't happen. But then you're going to have to deal with looking at the tabs until you get all the paper on it. It's 6 of one, 1/2 dozen of the other. I will add glue to the underside because I'm going to fold it down. And there we go with that one. And I'll add glue here. I'm going to make sure it's all straight before I fold it down though. Yep, it's straight. Fold it down, and then I'll burnish with my bone folder. So there we have the base page. So let's go ahead and do the other 4 pages till you get 4 more tubes. So we have 5 tubes. All right, now we're going to put the page in the book. But before we do that, I'm going to go back and burnish a little bit more because we let all the glue dry. So I'm going to take that rounded point of my bone folder, go back in that channel, do the same over here, and make sure the pages will move freely. And there we are, we're good. Okay, so now I'm starting at the back of the book. Why am I starting at the back? I don't know, habit. It really is just habit. I'll go ahead and burnish, move them over. Oops. Okay. We'll start with this last one. Before I add glue, I'm just going to dry fit it, make sure it all fits nice, and it really should because we've got this 1/8 of an inch smaller. And again, I'm going to dry fit it just to see where it's going to land. I don't like to, so obviously we'll take the tube and we'll put it in the hinge. I don't want it to be right down to the bottom because sometimes it'll click and it doesn't move as freely. So you want to go a little bit away from it. So I'll put it in and then move it back to where I want it to be. But because I have some movement to it, I don't like to put the glue all the way down to the bottom of the hinge. I just put glue on the top half of the hinge. And when I say the top half, so here's the hinge, I'll put glue in this area. I won't put it down at the bottom. I'm going to erase that just because I'm using white paper. I don't know why I wrote on it. Okay, so I'm going to take the glue and I'm going to zigzag the top portion on the hinge facing the back. Then I'm going to move it over and put it on the portion with the hinge turned towards the back. I'll take my page, put it on. Before I adhere it and burnish it, there's some movement, so I make sure that the bottom of the page is level with the bottom of the album, and I'm maybe 1/8 of an inch away from the bottom of the hinge. You could be more, you could be a little less. You just, again, don't want to be right next to the bottom. And then I'll go ahead and burnish with my bone folder. And then we'll do the same with the next one. Add glue to the top half of the hinge. Put that in. Make sure this is lined up with the last one. And burnish. And we'll do the same for the other ones. So sometimes I will make my pages, instead of doing a base page, the page will have pockets and flaps and folds when I put it in. Other times I make my base pages pretty plain, so then it's like a blank slate and I can add pockets and flaps and folds and hidden areas or whatever to the base page. So either one is correct. Again, I like to start with a base page. You end up probably using more paper and you end up probably doing more steps. But, you know, that way I get it the way I want it. And it's also easy. And also, because you guys know I have a YouTube channel and I'm forever making things, I can make lots of base albums and just have them ready. Like if you ever get into a creative slump and you just don't feel like taking out some paper and making something with it, but you want to do something, well, that's when I make blank albums with just the base pages. And then when I'm over my slump and I want to make something, then I can start designing an album. And usually I'll design it once I have the paper. You know, I look at the paper and the paper will inspire me. I'll like a certain, I'm going back and burnishing all those pages. I might like a certain cut apart or a certain page, and I can design the album based on the paper as opposed to what I want. Or sometimes I know I want lots of pockets and I design the album that way. Anyhow, I've got all the pages in the book, and now we're ready to modify the pages to go with the paper that we're going to use. Okay, before I get too far, I'm going to number my pages. So this is page 1, and that's the front, so I do 1F. This is page 1, and that's the back. Whoops, 1B, that's right. 2F, and I'm just going to go 3F, 4F, 5F. This is the inside back cover, IBC. and this is the inside front cover, IFC. All right, let's do a feature on the inside front cover. Now, if you follow me, you know, I generally like to have a pocket and a flap on the back cover. To me, that's the place of putting everything that doesn't fit anywhere else. I'm switching things up. I know I'm living crazy here, and I'm going to put a pocket and the flap on the inside front cover. So for the pocket, oh, this is the 65-pound cardstock that I've been using for the album. This one is 110-pound paper that I'm using for the flap. When I'm doing flaps, I like the sturdier paper. It's just probably just me. But anyhow, so this is 110 pound. All right, so for the pocket for the inside front cover, I am going to get a piece that's 7.5 by 3 1/4, 7.5 long, 3 1/4 tall. I'm going to put the 7.5 side at the top, score it at 1/2. Then I'm going to rotate it with the 3 1/4 side at the top. I'm going to score at 1/2. Rotate one more time so the 7.5 sides at the top with the score line, the long score line at the top, and score at 1/2 inch. Going to miter the corners, so at the top I'm going to go from about 1/4 inch down to the score line, and here from the score line to 1/4 inch down. And here we've got the score lines. They make an X. I'm cutting right across that X. Same here. So there we go. There is our pocket. Now here is our flap. So our page is 6.5. You could make this 6.5 wide, but then sometimes it'll get hung up as you open and close the book. So I'm making this 6 1/4. And I want it long enough to cover the pocket once we get that on there. So it's 6 1/4 by 4 3/4. I'm going to put the 4 3/4 side at the top, and I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. I'm going to miter. And I'll move my scoreboard. And I'm going to grab a corner rounder. Because another crazy thing about me, I know you're learning so much about me today, is I like my flaps over a pocket to have rounded corners. I don't know, it just finishes the look for me. So I'm taking my corner rounder and rounding those corners. I'll fold and burnish on the score line. And the same here. Fold and burnish on the score lines. Okay, let's put the pocket in first. So I'm going to add glue to this bottom tab. I'm going to just do the bottom first. Now, I don't need to go crazy with the glue because just a little bit will hold it, and plus I have an added secret. I'll show you in a second. So I'm going to line this up, especially with the outside edge here and the bottom of the page, making sure I am not in this gusset where that makes the book open, because if I am, this will get hung up there. All right, I'm going to burnish. Okay, before I go any further, all right, I've got some packing tape. Now I could use Scotch tape, but I don't have any right now. So I'm going to use packing tape. I could cut this too if I wanted to, but it's no big deal. So I have a piece probably about 5.5 inches. I'm going to cover my little tabby and put it here. And then I'll glue these down, the side tabs. Hope you guys aren't hearing that air conditioning. I am in Vermont. It is a beautiful state. I love Vermont. But here's here's what's going on. We're in a heat wave. It's like 85 degrees, which I know isn't that hot. You guys are probably suffering through 100-degree weather, but it's hot for Vermont. So my AC is on. Okay, so the reason I put that tape there is so if I end up not covering the bottom or this whole piece with paper, with pattern paper, then if I put something in the pocket, it's not going to get hung up. That tape will help keep things flowing in smoothly. Okay, now let's just make sure this is where I want it to be. Yes. Okay. So this, of course, has to be centered on the page and go to the top of the page. There's still room enough for a little magnet, or we could have the 2 circle closures if you want. I think I might do that. All right. Add some glue to that tab. I'm going to turn this so I can see it. Center this on the page. So there will be 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the page to my flap. And burnish it. And there we are. So there is the inside front cover. You know, I could have been showing you the book all along. So this is the inside front cover that we just did. So it's just a flap with a pocket. And I have a little folder inside here. But you probably saw that already through the walkthrough. Now we're going to do the front of page 1. So what that is a page with 2 flaps, and the flaps inside have 2 pockets. It also is a hidden pocket page, but we'll do that. Now I glued this flap down onto the left-hand side. This flap. Not this flap. What is this? This is a mat for the pattern paper. This was a 4x4 cut apart. You don't have to glue it down. You could use magnet here and a magnet here, but that means you need 4 magnets. So that way, if you glue it down, you only need a magnet here and a magnet there. But however you want to do it. All right, let me show you how to make that. All right. All right, basically what we're going to do is we're going to have a piece of paper. We're going to score it on the sides and score it at the bottom and cut off some pieces and miter. Let me show you exactly how we're going to do that. So the paper, you'll need 2 pieces that are 8 by 4 1/4. 8 by 4 1/4. I'm going to take it and put it in my scoreboard with the 4 1/4 side at the top. I'll score it at 1/2 inch, and I will score it at 3 3/4. 1/2 inch, 3 3/4. Then I'm going to rotate it so the 8-inch side is at the top, and we're going to score it at 6. I'm going to do the same with this one. It is treated the same, just sort of reverse, but I'll show you. All right, let's do this one first. So this is the sample. So we've got our score lines. I don't know if you can see it, so I'm going to make sure you can see it. There's the score lines on one side. Here's the other. So we're going to cut off this tab at the score line up to this score line. We're going to miter this piece. So this whole piece, that's gone. So I'll show you what I mean. Here's that 2-inch score line. I'm going to miter it up to that score line. And then I'm going to cut down this whole piece. I'm going to use long bladed scissors. You could use your trimmer if you wanted to. Just easier for me to do this. Okay, so there is that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to miter here and miter. So I'll show you. Let's miter it here. Let's miter there. Let's cut this right at the score line. And then we'll miter up to that 2-inch score line. And I'm going to miter this too slightly. All right. So we have all these funky little cuts. Now I'm going to take my bone folder, move my implements out of the way, and I'll fold this tab in, fold this tab in, fold this up, and burnish. So I'm going to add glue to these tabs. Fold it back and burnish. You know what? I forgot we need to miter there. Alrighty. Now I'll fold and burnish on this score line. Bring in my book. So this is going to go on the left-hand side of the page. It's going to go on the page, not on your hinge. Put it on that tube that we made, the actual page. Add glue to the tab, and then put it here. Line it up, make sure the bottom and top are lined up. Burnish, I'll open it and burnish. So we'll do the same with the other one, but sort of reverse. Meaning, I'm going to cut off this piece. Take my small scissors and do it here. So I'll miter here. Since I'm mitering, I'll do this one, miter here, miter there, and then this one I almost forgot in the last one. All these little pieces. And then I will cut off this piece up to that 2-inch score line. Pretty proud of the last one. It was pretty straight. What are the odds I'm going to cut this straight? Well, it's not bad. Okay. So again, we'll fold these and that'll go like that. So we'll burnish and burnish. And then add glue to the tabs. And burnish. I'll also fold here and add glue to this tab. And put it on the side of the page and burnish. Okay, so there we go. So these overlap a little bit. I could have made it so they just meet. In this case, I didn't mind it overlapping. I have a piece that's 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. This is I'm going to get a 4x4 cut apart and glue that onto there. Put magnets under here, magnets here. Glue this on once everything's all done. And it'll be a nice focal point, and plus it'll hold the magnet. So then this page will open and that page will open. And here we've got 2 pockets. Now, those pockets, I cut out, wait till the end because you'll have scraps. And I had a scrap that was almost exactly this size. It might have been longer, I cut it down. So it's 2 1/4 by 5 1/2. This is the 110-pound cardstock, which it doesn't matter, whatever. I am going to make a tag out of it just by, I'm going to cut a little corner off. All right, it's not like that. It's like that. It's important to know which way it is because I'm going to take this little corner, going to put it over to here, going to hold it down, and I'm going to cut this piece identical. So I have a tag. Now you may have a tag die that you can use, or you may have a tag punch board, or you may have some other implement to make a tag, or you might want to just round the corners or just leave it square. I'm going to actually take this first tag that I made and just draw the lines on it and then cut it. And the way I look at tags is it doesn't have to be perfect. So there we have 2 tags. Once I put on the paper, I might get a corner round, or not corner rounder, a hole punch and punch holes. So we have, this is our feature that'll go in the pockets. I suggest you put all the paper on before you adhere the magnets, because it gets thicker and sometimes the magnets aren't in the right spot. But so here we have that, and see, here's those tags. So I decorate it with a piece of paper on the top. Here's just a little 1/4-inch piece of this paper, and then that's just some plain cardstock. I added a little sticker there. I have just some hole reinforcers that I put at the top. I just added that because it makes it look interesting, and that's great room to journal. I left the back blank. You could add paper if you wanted to, but this was getting a little chunky. So that is our first page. All right, now we're going to do the back of page 1. So let me show you. It is a flap. It's got a gusset. There's another flap. And the reason I added this other flap is because there's 5 pages and it sort of gives you a 6th page. And then this comes up, and that actually has a pocket. And in the pocket is a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 folder, so you can actually get 3 photos plus some journaling on there. Plus you can add things to the pocket, add things on here, on here, on here, and there is a little just insert that I think we do when we decorate the page. And then here we've got a little tuck spot, and again, we do this when we decorate the page. All right, although this is probably the most complicated of the page, it's still pretty easy. There's only 3 pieces of paper. One is 3 3/4 by 4 1/4. One that is 6 1/2 by 6, and one that is 8 1/2 by 6 1/2. So let me grab my scoreboard and I'll show you how to score those. So we'll start with the 8 1/2 by 6 1/2. I'm going to put it in my scoreboard with the 6 1/2 side at the top. I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch and then score it at 6. Then I'm going to rotate it, and we're going to score it at 6. No, I'm sorry, we're going to score it at 2 1/2. All right, let's put that aside. And then this 6 1/2 by 6 with the 6 1/2 side at the top, score it at 1/2 inch. Incidentally, I am using the heavyweight cardstock for this one. You don't have to, it's just I had an extra piece, so I did it. Okay, so now this 3 3/4 by 4 1/4 with the 3 3/4 side at the top, we're going to score it at 3 1/8. So it's that tick mark right after the 3. And then 3 3/8. So that's going to give us a 1/4 inch gusset. We'll go ahead and miter this one. And we're simply going to miter up to that first score line from that 1/2 inch piece. That's all we need to do with that one. I'll fold and burnish later. This one we're going to miter at that 1/2 inch score line up to the score line. So that's pretty easy. All right, so this one's a little more involved, but still it's not difficult. What we need is a way to attach it to the page, so we're going to leave this 1/2 inch there, but we also need a pocket similar to what we've done before. So I'm going to miter at a diagonal right up to that score line on both sides of that 2 1/2 inch score line. I'm going to miter here and miter here. And then we're going to miter over here. And then what I'm going to do is grab my scissors, or you can use your paper trimmer. And so we've got the 2.5 inch mark or section over to the left. This top 1/2 inch piece, we're going to cut that off. Right up to that miter. So that's what you're going to have, you're going to be left with. I'm going to fold and burnish on our score lines. So fold on that 2.5 inch score line and fold on these 1/2 inch score lines. And same here. Okay, so with these 1/2 inch score lines, I'm going to just fold them in, add glue to the outside, and with this piece open, I'm going to fold this over, and that's going to give us a pocket. All right, and that's a 5.5 inch piece. Now we're going to grab our page, and I'm going to fold and burnish this 6 by 6.5 inch piece. And let's add this one first. I'll add glue on this 1/2 inch tab. And that's going to go on the right hand side of the page, and make sure you put it on the page, not on the hinge. I want to make sure it's even all the way around. And once I have it on, I'll go ahead and burnish here. And this piece, let's fold and burnish on the score lines. I needed this to be have a little room for movement, and that's why we have that 1/4 inch gusset. So I'm going to fold that in, add glue to our 1/2 inch tab. And that is going to go on the left-hand side of the page. I'm going to center it on the page. So I'm going to get that score line right even with the edge of the page. And then this piece, I'll put glue on our 1/2 inch tab. And that'll go on the top of the page, even with the top of the page. I don't want it to be too far over, because once this closes, this has to still close. So just test it before it's permanently adhered. I may have to add some more glue, but it was over a little too far to the right. I needed to make sure this page will close before I adhered it permanently. And there we go. I still can see it peeking over. Maybe I could have made it a little bit smaller, but it'll still do the trick. And so there we've got that page and that page. You know what I think I might do? I might cut this down a little bit. So this was 6 inches. Maybe cut it to 5 7/8. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm not going to put it in the instruction because it depends on where you put your other elements for the page. But it's important that the page closes, so I don't mind that I change my mind. It just depends on a lot of other things. So I'm going to put that in. Make sure it's on even. Make sure this page will close, and that'll close. Okay, good. Now I am going to add a magnet here and here. So go ahead and do that, and then we can move on to the front of page 2. All right, the front of page 2, whoops, that's not it. This closes, that closes. The front of page 2 is just simply a flap, and it's just glued on 3 sides, and there is a cut apart inside, which we'll deal with when we do the decorating. But because this is laid on top of the paper, I'm not going to do this first. All we need to do is grab the flap, which is 8.5 by 4.25. Grab our scoreboard, put the 8.5 side at the top, and score it at 4.25. And then, whoops, sorry for the noise. And then I'm not going to do anything with this but fold and burnish on the score line and save it for once we decorate the page. I'm going to just add a little dot of ATG and just put it on the page. You could put it on with a paper clip or some temporary adhesive, but that way I keep it all together. So that is all we need to do with the front of page 2. The back of page 2, the front of page 3 are similar, so we're going to do them at the same time. The back of page 2 has a flap with a cut apart, and then another flap, so that gives you room to put a photo or two, and a photo there, and room to journal there. And then there's a magnet closing that. This one actually is going to be a little bit bigger than what I have pictured here. This is going to be the same size flap as there, and that's all there's going to be is a flap with a magnet to hold it closed. So for that, or those, you will need 3 pieces of cardstock. Okay, so the flap is 4 1/8 by 3 5/8. Sometimes I'm making this flap a little bit bigger. In this case, I made it 4 1/8 by 3 5/8. So there's just 1/8 of an inch. Sometimes there's 1/4 of an inch, and I'm sorry that I'm changing it throughout the book. I don't know. I did change it throughout the book. Sometimes it would be 4 1/4 to give you 1/4 of an inch, so there's 1/8 of an inch on each side. I think in this case, the cut apart was cut a little smaller, and that's why it is a smaller measurement. So, and in a way, it's sort of good because now it shows you the different looks, either having 1/8 or 1/4 inch. So it's up to you. You can change the measurements as you go. There is also these 2, one for 2B, one for 3F, that's 5.5 by 6. So both of these, 5.5 by 6, we'll put the 5.5 inch side at the top and score it 1/2 inch. So we'll do that with both of those. And so with the 4 1/8 by 3 5/8, we'll put the 3 5/8 at the top and score at 1/2 inch. Easy schmeezy. So I'll grab my scissors and miter all of these corners. And let me bring in my book. I'll fold and burnish. Okay, so the flap for the cut apart, we'll add glue to that 1/2 inch tab. And this is going to go on the right side of the back of page 2. I'm going to center it so there's about 1 inch at the top, 1 inch at the bottom. I'm again putting it on the page, not on the hinge. And then one of the 5.5 by 6 inch pieces, we'll add glue to that tab, and that's going to go on the left hand side of the page. Make sure I line it up at the bottom and at the top. Burnish and burnish. So we'll put a magnet here and then one here. So I will do that later. And then this one, same thing. This is going to go on the outside of the page, so it'll go to the right side everything lined up nice and neat. Fold and burnish. And the magnet will go here and here. Now, if you don't want to use a magnet, you could use a swivel tab if you know how to do that. Otherwise, use a magnet. So that is the back of page 2, the front of page 3. For the back of page 3, it's simply a pocket. We are going to have a cut apart in that pocket, but it is a pocket. Wanted to take advantage of the train. I just wanted a page with the train. So that's what we're going to do. So for that, you'll need a piece of cardstock that's 2.5 by 7 with a 7-inch side at the top. Score it 1/2 inch and score it 6.5. Rotate it so the 2.5 sides at the top, we're going to score it at 1/2 inch. So since this is a pocket, we're going to have to cut it in a couple of places. First of all, miter. We're going to miter it at the top. And we're going to miter it across the X created by the 2 score lines, just straight across. And then I'll fold and burnish on our score lines. I'll pull in the book. Again, this is the back of page 3. I'm just going to add glue to this bottom tab. Oops. Add it to the bottom of the page. I'm making sure it's even with the bottom. Then I'll burnish it. And then I'll grab some tape. And again, I have packing tape. And put that down there. Burnish that with my bone folder. And then I'll add glue to the 2 side tabs. And pull that up and burnish. And burnish. Sometimes I'll push at these corners just to make sure that you still can get to that. The front of page 4 won't have any features except for when we decorate, we'll add some photo mats. So let me show you the back of page 4. The back of page 4 is simply a flap. I thought this paper was really pretty. There's a couple of stickers on the sticker sheet with these same elements, and I guess you could add one here, but I just thought it was so pretty I didn't want to cover it up. Once you put a photo on, you'll cover it. But all we need is a piece that is 4 1/4 by 3 3/4 for that flap. And so here's the difference. You know, I showed you before when I had 4 1/8 by 3 5/8. So this is the larger one. You can judge for yourself which one you prefer and make them all consistent. So I'm just going to put the 3 3/4 side at the top and score it at 1/2 inch. Sorry I didn't show that to you, but that was pretty simple. And we can miter. And add this to the left side of the page, having it centered on the page. And of course, we'll put a magnet here and here. So that is all we need for the back of page 4. All right, the front of page 5 is a flap and a flap. So you can put 4 photos that are 4 by 4 on this page. And then we've got a decoration. Now I glued it on 3 sides, and this is actually from the sticker sheet I just backed it on some white cardstock, put a hole in it, and added some seam binding, and that can go into the space, and there's magnets in there. So to make that, I have 2 pieces of paper. So one is 4 1/4 by 8 1/2. One is 4 3/4 by 4 1/4. The 4 3/4 side will go at the top. I'm actually going to turn this over and score it at 1/2 inch. And then this 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, we're going to put the 8 1/2 side at the top and score it at 4 1/4. Fold and burnish on the score line. Fold and burnish on this score line. All right, the way I'm going to do this is put them together. So I've got the flap on that 4 3/4 by 4 1/4 on the right hand side, and just put them all together, make sure they're flat on the table. Then I'm going to open this up, add glue here. I didn't miter, it's okay. And fold and burnish. And so then you've got this flap. Now, if they don't fold, I think my 8 1/2 inch paper isn't exactly 8 1/2. I think it's like a 1/16 of an inch bigger. You can always trim off a little bit on this 4 1/4 or one of these just so it comes in and folds nicely. I'm going to add just a touch of ATG on the sides and hold it on here. So once I add the decorative paper, then I can glue it down on 3 sides, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. And then to add the magnets, I'm going to put the magnet on here, and then I'll add my cut apart on top of that, and I will also have a magnet underneath just on the side so it doesn't get in the way of my little tag. The tag is small, it's just about 2 inches, so you have an inch on each side so I can put the magnet, it won't get in the way. So that's all I needed to do with the front of page 5. The back of page 5, I don't do anything, we just add a piece of decorative paper for a photo. I didn't even want to put a photo mat on here, but you could. I just thought it was so pretty, and I just wanted to leave it alone. But if you wanted to put a photo mat, you could cut it maybe 4 1/4 and then cut some 4 by 4 paper to put on top of it. Like I said, I just thought it was pretty, so I left it alone. So the back inside cover is a waterfall. Now it's got this front piece, so that's one of the 4 by 6 cut aparts. The magnet is underneath this cut apart, and it's also here. Now, if you wanted to, you could put the magnet and this piece going on top, but again, I didn't want to cover this, so I put this underneath. So this will come up, this will come down, and then this is a little flap. You don't necessarily need that flap, but I liked it just because it sort of hid all of this. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So here's that flap. If you wanted to, you could add glue to the side and make it a little pocket, but I just left it as a flap. That's all. So for this whole thing, what we need is 4 pieces of 6 1/4 by 4 3/4. 6 1/4 by 4 3/4. You'll need a piece that's 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. This needs to be trimmed down. And then you'll need a piece that's 2 1/2 by 3 1/2. Why did I not trim this down? I do not know. 8 1/2. All right, grab scoreboard. This 6 1/4 by 8 1/2 with the 8 1/2 side at the top. We're going to score this at 6 1/4. These 4 pieces, 6 1/4 by 4 3/4, with the 4 3/4 side at the top of all of them, we'll score at 1/2 inch. Do not miter the corners. You don't miter the corners of a waterfall. I mean, you could, but it looks better if you don't. And this 2 1/2 by 3 1/2 with the 3 1/2 side at the top, we're going to score it at 1/2 inch. You could make this smaller if you wanted to. I just sort of liked it being a little bit chunky. All right, let's fold and burnish on our score lines. There's that piece. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll fold and burnish on this score line. All right, so starting with one of these pieces, we're going to add glue and glue it right to the top of that 6 1/4 by 8 1/2 inch piece. The fold line is towards the bottom of the page, so this is just going to be lined up with the very top. Make sure the sides are even, and then we'll fold and burnish. And then we will add the next pieces of the waterfall right up to the bottom of the little tab of the other pieces. Making sure the sides stay even. Now when I decorated this, I just added 3/4 inch pieces to the bottom. You don't have to. You could fill it up with pattern paper. The only thing I suggest is put on the magnet after you have done the pattern paper. All right, I'm going to burnish there. All right, and then this little 1/2 inch piece, I'll add glue to the inside of the tab here. Actually, first, let me make sure this is even. So I'll use the lines on my surface. So since this is 6 1/4, I want it 1/8 inch on each side. Here's the center. This is 2 1/2, so I know I want it at the 1/4 inch mark. So now that I know where I want to line it up, I'll add glue to the inside of the tab. And line it up. And there we go. Gonna burnish it, turn it upside down, and burnish it. So there we go with the waterfall. Now, when I added the waterfall to the pages, I did add some of the solids underneath, but I realized that was a mistake. You really can't see the solid underneath. You can see maybe a 1/16 of an inch, and I don't know that it's worth using that paper. I think this one I'm just going to add to here and not worry about putting a solid underneath. So you'll put a magnet on the top of this, and you'll put a magnet here, but of course you're going to have the cut apart on the top of there. All right, the last feature we need are our little hidden photo mats, and I have these using with tabs. So I use my tab punch board. I'm going to show you how to use the tab punch board, and then I'm going to show you an alternate method in case you do not have the tab punch board. Actually, let me show you the alternate method first, but hold on if you have the tab punch board. And you might want to use this. So what you'll need is 5 pieces of cardstock that are 5.5 by 6. This is the non-tab punch board method. So all you need to do for this is round the corners. And then when you put it in the book, I'm going to take this one out and put this in instead. You'll have just about maybe 1/4 of an inch showing. You could simply add a strip of paper at the top, and it just adds a nice little decorative element to it. Now, if you have any kind of tab punch that you want to add tabs to, you can certainly do that. But that is the non-tab punch method. All right, let's say you have the tab punch board. So I've added different measurements on here. You'll need for that 5 pieces that are 5.5 by 6.25. We're going to do 2 with the tab at the top, 2 with the tab in the middle, sort of towards the top, and 1 at the tab in the very middle. The reason why I have the tab at the top is because you flip it over and there's the tab at the bottom. So with the 5.5 side at the top of the tab punch board, I'm going to put it over about equal to the edge of this punch part of the tab punch board, and punch it. Got this teeny little piece. I'll just cut that. Now, what I have done is I also have this tab punch. I have, grab a scrap of paper. So what I did a long time ago was I took the tab punch and I put it on a piece of paper and decided that I want my tab punch board to punch about 1/4 of an inch bigger than this tab. So knowing that, I put that here. Here's my mark. I made a mark on my tab punch board with a marker. And so I turned it and punched. So this punch that I made is bigger than my tab, just so there's an equal amount around it, like I do when I decorate the rest of my book. And then for the tab punch board, all you have to do is you take this thingy and you go across. It's not always perfect. It has a little bump on it sometimes, but that's okay. It doesn't bother me. And so there is that. So I do 2 of them with the tab starting at the edge of this punch part. So that was one. I'll do the second one. And then that'll line up with my little mark on here. Like that. Take this. And there we go. All right, so I have number 1 and number 5. Now, for number 2 and number 4, I'm going to start it at, there's measurements on here, I'm going to start it at 4M, middle of 4, or medium of 4. So I punch once there, I line this up with my little mark here, and punch it again. I'll do the same thing for this one, medium 4. And then I will go ahead and trim that, and here, and do the same with this one. And so now I've got number 1, number 2, number 4, and number 5. So you can see they go in a sequence. And then for the remaining one, I just need it in the middle of here. So I have done 2 things. I made a mark that says center, so I can figure out where the center is here. But I already know that if I take 5S and line this up with 5S, punch it, match it up with my little mark, and that is the center. So I go ahead and take this. So, I mean, I use this punch board a lot. This in conjunction with my tab punch. I use it a lot. And then all I have to do with my tab punch is I go through my scraps. I usually have a pile of scraps by this time. Trying to find some scraps that are big enough. And I just punch, whoops. And punch. And then add these scraps to my tab. And that decorates it. Now sometimes you have to be cautious about the orientation. Sometimes you have to be cautious to make sure it's straight. Like if I were doing the plaid, I would want it to be lined up and nice and straight. But in this case, this had the bows on it, the little bow ties. It didn't matter. They were all sort of randomly on there. So anyhow, that is... Oh, and the other thing is, I did not add pattern paper at this point. I didn't add any paper to here. But if you were going to, you certainly could add paper and put the photos on the paper. So you would do it 5 3/8 by 5 3/8, cut 2 for each one. So you would need 10 of them total for these. So anyhow, that is how I do my hidden photo mats. So that is really all there is to adding the features in the pages. I'm going to go through and put on the magnets, and in the next video, I'm going to decorate this book. I don't have at this point, I don't know if I will do it, but at this point I don't have the measurements of the decorating written down, but I will talk over the measurements of decorating as I go through it. Now, of course, I did use the Echo Park It's a Boy paper. Let me show you the sheet of that. So it was this one, and I have the solids, I have the stickers that came with it. On the books that I'm showing you, I did get chipboard frames. There were 3 frames. I made 3 books with it using about this size frame. Now the only frames I have left of the chipboard frames are these, and you could use them on the book, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do something similar to this, but just not with a chipboard frame. I mean, I'm sure you've already seen it because you've seen the walkthrough, but it's just an option. I just wanted to show you that. So that's what I have for you today. I hope this was easy to follow. I know I did change some things up, like the 3x4 cut apart flaps, but you know what? You guys are paper crafters. You can go with the flow. So thanks so much for watching. Have a fabulous day.